Are you ready for a houseplants in the house rather than the conservatory tour? Stick around with me and let's have a look. Hi, my name is Memo, this is my channel, Houseplantygoodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out about my big passion. You might be able to see some of it behind me, it's tropical houseplants. So yes, today's going to be one of two videos, I don't know which order they're going to come out in. One is going to be a conservatory slash plant room tour, which is what you're seeing here. This video, however, is going to be all of my houseplants within my house, because I know a lot of you are always sort of like, Memo, you've got almost ideal conditions in the conservatory. We don't have that. What do the plants in your actual household conditions look like? What are they doing and all these things? So consider this your houseplant tour of the plants in the house. Oh, the redundancy in all this. Also, because I know a lot of people do want to see this, but not everybody does, I've also, within this video, will have a garden tour immediately after the houseplant tour, and after that there will be an allotment tour as well, because this is kind of like, we're coming to the end of the summer and I will try to do these tour videos once a season, but because it's obviously warmer now and there's more going on in both the garden and the allotment, I've added that in. If you do not want to watch either one of those two sections and you just want to watch the first one, which is why I've put it first, which is the houseplants, that's absolutely fine. I don't mind. I know it's not for everybody, but I do know that there's a lot of people that are interested in what's going on in the garden and also what is going on at the allotment. So without further ado, I will let you enjoy. Okay, here's a new view for you all, basically. So this is the usual, and let me just step out of the way so you can kind of see it in all of its glory. This is the kind of bay window that I've got here. And let me talk to you about what's kind of going on here. So right in the corner there, you might be able to see this is the Hoya australis lisa. Right next to it is the new addition, which is the tiny dancer. Very, very cool. And in between that, there is a Sansevieria samurai. There's some cuttings from a Euphorbia trigona, which is the fact that this was starting off as a cutting, this is now probably bigger than the mother plant. There is a neon philodendron scandens. There is the orange spider plant, and that just, I mean, can you understand now why I wanted this? I mean, the pop of color is insane in here. So it's still doing well. I had some kind of browning on one of its newest leaves there, but I am giving this like filtered water, so it should be okay. I don't know what's happened with this one. Maybe it was getting a tiny bit of too much light, but just to give you an idea of the rootage, can you see the sheer level of roots that is happening there? Insane! So yes, that's doing quite well. Then I've got, oh, and I can never remember the name of this off the top of my head, but this is a caduciform plant, and this is the one that, oh, this is the mirabilis something. Oh, I can never remember. I'll put it on the name on the screen. But this does really, really well, and these leaves close at night. And this is the first year. I caught myself there. This is the first year that it's not had mealybugs. Whilst I spot 2, 3, 4 mealybugs. Yay! I need to deal with this. But yeah, it's doing quite well. I have also got my Hoya sunrise here and the little truncata, the Haworthia truncata. So that is looking very, very cool. And it's actually growing, I think, which is always difficult to tell with these plants because they stay relatively diminutive, but this is doing quite well. I mean, I'm not unhappy about that, so that's doing really, really well as well. I have got a rick-rack cactus, which is not doing so great, so that one might be going bye-bye soon. Then I've got the, for the eagle-eyed, anybody can see this is the last remaining leaf of the Sansevieria metallica, because where I wanted it to be is obviously way too low of light, so everything pretty much rotted out quite quickly, but there was one leaf remaining. So there is that. There is the Rhaphidophora. Oh, I can never remember which Rhaphidophora it is. This is not the Tetrasperma. So this is the other one that I bought recently, and I can never remember the name of it, but this is on a moss pole, hoping for the leaves to start getting a bit bigger. They're kind of doing their thing. I don't know whether or not it's managed to root. Oh no, it has started to, I can see it now through the moss pole, started to root in, and I think when it starts getting a few of its like roots within this, and I was fully expecting this is going to need an extension in about a month's time. And I would expect at that point it's going to start kind of really sizing up, but very, very, very cool and simple, really, really simple. No different in terms of care, I think, and in terms of ease than the Tetrasperma, even though, as I said, this is not a Tetrasperma. I'll put the name at the top so you can kind of see it, but very cool and very easy plant so far. And then, this is doing so well. This lowest leaf is kind of dying off, and that's fine with me because there's a new leaf coming in. This is the Philodendron Sorderoy. So look at the leaves, looky, looky. And this one grew entirely in my care, and it's doing quite well. There's a brand new leaf that is coming in right there. So yes, very, very excited about this. And then next to it, I have got some errant like crown of thorns. I've got Philodendron gigas and a couple of, I think, pink princess, white princess, something, crimson princess Hoya, that's it. Crimson princess Hoya. And I think that's everything from this bit. Let me show you a few other things on the side there. And I finally managed to get a tripod so I can actually kind of be in the shots a bit more for this. Let me just move the entire tripod. And here you can see the only other plant that's in here. Oh, actually, no, I'll show you in just a moment. This is just a regular ZZ plant. Right down there below, you might see it peeking at the very top there, is Spike and his terrarium. So the crested gecko lives in the living room, basically, mainly because I spend a lot of the evenings here. He's nocturnal, so he comes out in the evening. It's the only time that I can kind of interact with him as a bit of a pet, so it makes sense for him to be in here. And he's very nosy because there used to be a point where all meals were had on the dining room table here, which he sits right next to it, and he would sit and watch me eat dinner and get really huffy if I wasn't there. And then that's the only other plant that you can see in the back there, which is, it's got a grow light on the top of it, but the reason why it's leaning so heavily down is because it's trying to get as much of that light coming in from that inner conservatory window, which is the white bird of paradise, the Strelitzia nicolai. Now let me move you to some other bits of the house. Okay, so this space is a bit darker, and I'll see if I can kind of brighten it up a bit more in editing. But down below here, I have got some more ZZ plants just because they can handle the darkness. There is a Patura aquatica here. There is also a Alocasia mescalitiana down there. And a Schefflera, which is doing okay, but nothing to write about. I just needed something pretty by the front door. So that door, you can see, does get a lot of light coming through now that I've kind of come closer to the camera. It's kind of recalibrating a bit. So you can see that they can get quite bright. And then showing you in the bathroom, the only big plant, there's a big golden pothos, which is looking peaky. That is probably going to be going to the compost gods this year. And I decided here I had a Syngonium albo, which was struggling a bit because the light that was coming in, even though it does look quite bright now, wasn't getting as much as it could do. But I have got instead, in order to replace it, a variegated lipstick plant. So this was doing okay. It came in really, really dense coco coir, and I think it was struggling a bit. I have completely taken it out of that media and put it in Grow Tropical's Philodendron and Monstera mix, and it is so much happier. The leaves are turgid. You can see I was getting a bit of dieback there, but it's now kind of starting to really enjoy life and coming back, and I can kind of see this has got very small roots. It's the first time, believe it or not, this is the first time in my life that I have ever grown a lipstick plant. So wish me luck. If you've got any tips, let me know. I have never grown them, but I know that they're not particularly fussy plants. I also know that they can handle quite low light conditions, ironically enough. So I thought I'd give them a try. And then right at the back there, and I'll bring it up so you can kind of see it, is a ponytail palm, which is great. This one dropped out of my hands this week when I was watering it outside in the garden, because I like to go and give him a shower in the garden these days because it's not so cold. The entire pot did not break except for the tiniest little corner, which is enough that if there's any water sitting in there, it drips everywhere now. So unfortunately, it's slightly prouder than it was before. The pot, the internal pot, comes up a bit too much because I had to put a drip tray in the bottom, because I'm not getting rid of it. It looks fine. It's okay. It's fine. And then behind me, you should be able to see my big Thai constellation, the Montero Thai constellation. There is also, you possibly see the very bottoms of it, there is the Burley Marks Philodendron variegata. Usually behind here, I'll have the orchids kind of sitting there, but they're currently getting watered, and I'll show you them in just a second. But yeah, this is the office. And then here you can kind of see the big shelving unit, which has got more of my darker plants, because this has only got one grow light that you can kind of see where the light is coming from now that's hitting everything. So I've got things like a cast iron plant here, I've got a Sansevieria, there's a Dracaena here, there's obviously like a golden pothos everywhere. I'm trying to think what else is here. There's some ZZ plants, but this is pretty much a bit of a dark corner, but it's still getting enough light that it makes the space a lot more green. Now the other thing that you might be able to see here is I've got a Marble Queen pothos, and then behind it, and let me see if I can kind of tilt you around, there is a neon pothos as well. So these are the ones that I sit here, these are the ones that really I get to enjoy all day every day, which is great. And welcome to the reality of living in the UK. It's permanently clothes drying inside the house. Here I've got the one window, and you can see now where I was going to move one of the alocasias that I bought recently, but in the end I ended up moving my Ficus elastica schweriana, and it's still doing okay. You can kind of see some of the leaves there. It's doing, I mean, it's okay. Would this appreciate to be in the conservative to get more downwards light? Yes, but needs must. This is what's happening. It's fine. And then I'll tilt you down so you can kind of see right down there is where all the waters that have just, all the orchids that have just been watered are currently drying out. So this is the usual Sunday scenario, is everything kind of sits in water for 20-30 minutes and then they dry out and then they go back to their places. Okay, and at the window we've got, I can never remember this Hoya quinquenervia. This is done so well. Let me show you. It looks super cool. It's massively sun stressed, which is what I want from it. And you can kind of see that reddening of the leaves. Apologies, as usually there's a problem when there's too much light coming in this way. Actually, let me see if I can switch on the lights. That might make a difference. Didn't make a massive difference, but you know, that was okay. I'm just focusing now a bit more. So you can kind of see the coloration that's happening there, and you can see the nerves on the plant as well, and there as well. And these are the darkest leaves here. You can see what the leaves look like when they first come in, but this is a south-facing window in my bedroom, so it is loving its life. And then what else have I got here? So you can kind of see that in a bit clearer. And then I got my little baby, little peyote cactus there, which is super cool. This is also the Conophytum. So I've got a bit of a light, I just remembered, on the camera gimbal, so it's not the best lighting, but it's going to have to do, and if I need to brighten it in editing, I will do. But this is kind of fine. This is one of the succulents I was talking about. This pretty much does nothing in the summer. This kicks in the winter, so just bear in mind when you're doing your watering for your succulents and your cacti, that edict of you stop watering in the winter and you maybe pick up again, or massively reduce in the winter and pick up again in the summer, doesn't apply to all of them. It might apply to most of them, but double check these things online to see if yours is slightly different and bucks the trend. I've got my little two Euphorbia obesses, which I was hoping was going to be a female and a male so I could kind of cross-pollinate it. Did I get that? No, I got 2 males. And then obviously there's something that's missing here, which is the orchids, but then the other thing that is here is absolutely stonking huge. And you can see the fact that it's growing in pon. This is my Zanzibarian moonshine. Absolutely huge. It's busting out of the pot. I need to actually probably give it a bigger pot. Remember what I said about this window? South-facing window. Are some of these leaves bleached? Yes. Are some of these leaves completely fine and the colour that they're meant to be? Also yes. So remember where these plants come from. Sansevierias are from Africa, so they can handle a lot more light than you think they can. Okay, and this is one of the other rooms, and this is my feral plants. Believe it or not, the light is on in here, and oh, it's maybe balancing out a bit more. So there is the philodendron golden violin, and I'll move out so you can kind of see it there. Or the golden goddess, I think it's Malay gold as I bought it. Then I've got my Ceropagia sandersonii, which is the parachute Ceropagia. You can kind of see the little blooms there. Such a massively underrated plant. So much cooler, in my humblest of opinion, than the string of hearts. This is so much more interesting. The blooms on this are so much more interesting than anything else. And because it's pretty much a succulent plant, it is so forgiving, as long as you don't overwater it, obviously. And then I've got a feral philodendron pedatum, which I've got too many of these that I took cuttings from years, and they're all kind of getting much smaller leaves, so that one might be going to the compost god soon. I've got a whole bunch of succulents. Carrie, if you see the video, that is most of the stuff from the last trade. It's doing really well. There is a propagation of a Monstera albo surviving. It's not thriving, it's surviving. It's creating a bit of green there. And then a whole bunch of cuttings of reverted philodendron burley marks variegata, so just green cuttings. So into the family bathroom now. You'll see here, and it's doing really well, and I need to do a review on this as well because I've got things to say. This is the Polischia Ming, which is doing really well. You can see what it's doing, but it's not the most straightforward plant. And I know it's not one for everybody, but I do love the fact that it kind of reads more like a mini tree than anything else, or a mini bush, if that makes sense at this point with this one. And there's not that many of those in the houseplanty world, basically, that read like mini kind of bonsai trees. Then you've got the alocasia that I did the unboxing with, and this was the gifted one. That is the newest leaf. Unfortunately, there was a tiny bit of mechanical damage. You can see the little hole on there, but it'll be fine. I love the fact that this got quite a bit of love, actually. It is a very cool plant, and it was, when I was kind of doing the editing and looking into it a bit more, it is a hybrid between the sinuata, which is more of a jewel alocasia, and a much bigger full size, the kind of more traditional alocasias that you think of. So this should size up quite a bit. Some of the lowest leaves, they're kind of dying off a bit. This one would have died off anyway, and this one unfortunately I think got a bit snapped in shipping, but the rest of them are all doing great. Behind it is a massively like sun-bleached philodendron burleymarks variegata. It's surviving though, keep in mind, and it's still throwing out new leaves all the time, so that's quite good. And then right in the corner here is a white Monstera albo. And then if I spin you around, you can kind of see and let me just tilt you up and down. So if you look down below, that is where the Amplicium, and it's also mixed in with the Penatum starts off. And I've just instead of kind of growing it on planks, I'm literally growing it on old bits of wood from like an old cupboard, and it goes right the way to the top. So this one is loving life. It is one that I will say, you saw where the window is. The window's kind of there. The plant is here. There's a decent distance from it. What that means is that in the kind of summer months, spring and summer, this really takes off and I start getting loads of like new growth. This one is slightly going back to more juvenile form, but you can see when it was attaching, you're getting the more kind of mature pinnatum leaves here. And the moment that it disattached or is no longer attached, it starts to revert back to more juvenile looking leaves. This is a plant that will do a lot in the spring and summer and do pretty much nothing in the autumn and winter because there's not enough light coming in here from this. But that is absolutely fine because it means it's a lot more manageable. But it almost ends up looking like a bit of a tree and it's just on 2 planks of wood. This one's going to be a pain in the bum to move when I move houses, but you know, future Memo's problem. And now we're in the room where I have a lot of my kind of more succulents, because again, this is on the same side as the bedroom. My bedroom is right next to this room basically, so this is all south facing. So here is where, and I'll show you now so you can kind of understand what I meant before, that the mother plant is not as big as the propagate anymore. This is the original Euphorbia trigona, and you can see where I took the cuts there because it was getting way too big. And it's done a bit of branching out and it is sun-stressed to the nth degree. I don't mind, I think it looks quite pretty with some of the colour. And the plant is growing absolutely fine. Is this maybe getting a bit too much light? Possibly. Is it killing it? No, so it will stay there, it's fine. Then I can never remember what this one is, but somebody gave this to me as a gift when I was first starting off again with plants. So this plant is probably about 6 or 7 years old now, but it's doing all right. It's pupping out, which is cool. I should probably cut the pups up and maybe put them in because there's so much like barren stems. But with a lot of these kind of rosette forming succulents, unless you can put them underneath a grow light so they're growing vertical, so they kind of stay a bit more compact rather than leaning and etiolating. But the really cool thing that you might be able to see, and hopefully that's coming through, you can see all the little roots that are attaching off the side of this straight into the soil. You can see what I mean now by the one and only, one of the, maybe not the only one, but one of the few peperomias I've got left. This is the Peperomia obtusifolia variegata, so this is the baby rubber plant, I think they call it. Still doing really well. This is the Hoya with a whole bunch of numbers, and I can never remember the name, so I'll put it up on the screen now. But you can see it's also got a little peduncle with some blooms that are on the way. This one's kind of velvety as well, actually, and it does sun stress quite prettily, which is why I have it here. I think one of the stems may have died out or is dried out a bit too much, but the rest of it is doing quite well, so I'm okay with that. There is an aloe here and an echeveria and also a money plant. This is the Crassula ovata here. Mine has dropped quite a few of its leaves, so I think it's more architectural at this point. Look, architecture. It's intended to be like this, yes. But it's okay, I don't mind it. Again, this is one. This plant might be as old as some of my orchids. It's probably about a 7 or 8 year old, maybe more actually. This might be close to 10 years old now. And it started off as one plant, probably about the size of just that, and it's grown into this. So it's done well. So this is the utility room, and I've got a couple of Hoyas here. So this is a Hoya Wietii variegata, which has tried to die off on me several times. The only thing that made it happy is I've moved it into a cactus soil mix. So whatever that might mean, take that as advice. Also, for the people that were here for the repot recently, remember that I repotted this from the propagation bin, and that hasn't even been that long. That is a brand new leaf that's coming through, and there's quite a few growth points that have activated. Also, to give you an understanding of how much that has already rooted in, you should, and move this around, you should be able to see the level of roots that this is aggressively rooting in. Again, cactus soil mix. And my 3 or 4 year old croton at this point. And I've tried getting bigger ones and getting them to grow slowly, but you can see the leaf jump that's happened between last year and this year. And this isn't ever going to be massive, but I'm okay with it, and it's never really given me any issues. For the people that are going to ask, I give this as much light as I possibly can. This is in a kind of standard houseplant soil mix with a lot of aeration, and to be fair, if I actually potted this up one more time, it would probably grow even more leaves. Again, for the people that were around for the recent repot, remember where I took my Monstera siltepecana and chopped off all of the leaves? One new growth point, two new growth points, there's a fourth one in there as well, fifth there, there might even be a sixth somewhere, possibly there, yeah. Still fully rooted in, and it will just get leaves. It's a Monstera, it'll be fine. And then there's a propagation of the Piper sylvaticum. Annoyingly, I had to repot this recently and it threw the most almighty wobbly, but this is in pon, self-watering, in a semi-bright window, in regular household humidity. Fine, it doesn't look great, but it was just a stem and it's just continued to grow. So for the people that say that it can be challenging, it can, but sometimes it will just do its own thing. In the kitchen now for the last few bits and pieces of plants. I'll open it up so you can kind of see. This is the bit that I was talking about. If you've seen the garden tour before this one, this will make a lot more sense. Let me see if I can kind of move some stuff around. Right. So, what you've got here is I've got the Hoya pubicalix on the corner here, which is doing fine. It's got some new blooms that are coming through. The peduncles are starting getting ready to swell up. Then my Callistophila Hoya, which was gonna die off, and it's been bleached to a beggary, but it's still surviving. It's still got some roots in there. This only just got watered today. It doesn't need watering that frequently. It's not dying off. The leaves are fine. I don't have any rot, but there was some issues with it not that long ago, so there is that. I'm also kind of looking down because Duke is sniffing around, and I will pan you around in just a moment to see the dog as well, because I know somebody's going to ask. Then we've got the little, what am I blocking now? I cannot remember. This is the little pickle plant basically, but it's doing well. I've given it the opaque pot, because everybody knew that it was growing internally. Has that stopped it from happening? No, although I don't know if I've missed that when I was taking most of them out. But at the moment there's not too many growing in there, and it's finally figured out that maybe it needs to go up rather than down. This is the current state of play on the plant that has got, this is the oniony looking one that's got those kind of frizzly looking leaves. Not the frizzle sizzle, but it is related to that one. I can't remember it. I'll put the name at the top there. But this is what this does. It goes dormant, a succulent plant that goes dormant in the summer, and it will kick back in, hopefully, in the winter, because I've not had it for a full year yet, but the kind of oniony base is looking very turgid, and the roots are growing like mad at this time of the year. This, to give you an idea, now in the summer it gets watered like once every 2 to 3 weeks, because obviously there's nothing for it to photosynthesize on. So there is that. The new Hoya from the recent video upload. So this is the Hoya erythrina, and it's doing quite well. I mean, it's still settling in. It will probably take a beat before it starts kind of pushing out new growth, but also in cactus soil mix, I find that most of my Hoyas, the Soil Ninja specifically, the Soil Ninja cactus soil mix, but any soil mix that is for cacti, I actually find works really well for Hoyas, if I'm being honest. And then, look, this is, why am I blocking? Why am I blocking? This is, and for the person that said to watch out for mealybugs, thanks. I'd never thought I was going to have this much of an issue with this plant. This is the tamarind plant, but it's doing really, really well, to be fair to it. And you can see some of the newest growth that is happening there, and these are also leaves that kind of close at night. And then I've got the, I can never remember this Hoya's name. Oh, the Croniana, and it's a silver Croniana. It's doing well. I mean, it's a very small little Hoya, but it's doing its thing. I've then also got here the, as I stab myself, the Gymnocalcium Mihanovicii cactus. That has also fruited, by the way. This is one of the last ones that's remaining on there, but there you go. You can kind of see, if it will focus, you can see the little fruits inside. The way that I look at it, it's just like, It's like a prickly pear cactus fruit. Not that I think it's edible, but then there's also some new blooms that are going to come up. This is bloomed constantly. So very, very cool little cactus. If you ever want one that blooms quite frequently, that is one that will do it for you. Then I have got the Ficus Benjamina, the variegated one. I've then also got the other ficus, I can remember the name, but I'll put it up on the screen, which does this. This was tiny when I got it. It was probably down to here, and it's grown so much. I also found that this one was growing better in the in-between season. I think the summer now is maybe a bit too much for it. But I am excited to see this kind of kick back into growth as we come into autumn and spring. I think the problem is it's just too bright. This is another south facing window, so, and these are getting baked. And then there's also Hoya Crinkle 8 there. So let me show you the dog, and then I'll show you the final window essentially, and I'll wrap up for the house tour. So there is Duke. Hey bud. Look. Say hello to the people on the internet. We're being all shy. You're never shy, dude. Yes, look at you. Oh, those eyes. Like butter wouldn't melt. Anybody who's got a lab knows that that's not true. Right, let me show you the last window. And this is kind of like the kitchen diner where we'll have most of the meals here. There's a big aspidistra elater, so a cast iron plant instead of cut flowers on here, which I generally tend to prefer. There is a monstera, I'll put the name at the top, I can't remember now what this one's called. A standard flamingo type anthurium, because I just wanted it for the blooms and I thought, fuck it, why not? But I thought the flowers were quite cool on this one because they're not all the same colour. And the way that I've got that to bloom, for anybody that's got standard anthuriums and they're struggling to get it to bloom, I bought a specific orchid bloom boosting fertilizer, which has got very little amount of actual nutrition in there other than just promoting the blooms, and that one I add a touch to its water every time I water it. Also, to give you context here, this is getting beat down by light. That's what keeps this one happy, unlike a lot of our other anthuriums, and I'm pointing that way because that's what the conservatory is. And it gets watered every 3 days, and I've left it in the grower's media because it seems happy in the grower's media. I'm not going to mess with it. There is a philodendron not Gygus. Is it Gygus? No. Philodendron. Oh, I'm blocking. Glorious. That's the word I was looking for. It's doing all right. A stunning heirloom Hoya here from a friend. The philodendron. That's the one with the gloriosum and the McCauley's finale, which I cannot remember right now. And then the last little plant is cutting from my original philodendron Burley Marks variegata that is reverted, but just fills up a bit of space. That is all the house plants in the house. Okay, and let's do the front garden now. So this here is a camellia that's just finished blooming recently, but it's done really, really well this year. Anybody who's struggling with their camellias to kind of get them to the stage, wow, there's a fruit and everything. I've never seen a camellia fruit. That's really interesting. Anybody who's struggling to get them to bloom, I heard this from a gardener years ago. They need a lot of water, as in daily watering in the summer. In the winter, if you're in the UK and it rains as much as it does, you're fine. But water it daily in the winter, in the summer, even if it's going to rain. Trust me, you'll see blooms the next year. Not that year. It won't affect that year, but it'll affect the next year, and it makes a huge difference. Absolutely stinking huge kind of hydrangea that you can kind of see behind right there. I can't take any credit for that one. That was from the previous owners. And then if I show you through here, behind me, right there, there is a banana Darjeeling. And I cannot remember now. Oh, what the actual botanical name, I think it's, oh, that's it, Musa sicumensis, I think, if I'm not mistaken. There's some salvia hot lips that are happening right down there. A whole bunch of bindweed. And then over here, I'll bring it up so you can kind of see it if it hasn't bound its way on everything. There you go. That is a stunning little passion flower, which is very, very cool. What I didn't realize is last year, kind of left it to do its own thing, and I had 3 or 4 passion fruits in the UK in a really horrendously bad, like wet and cold summer, which was unbelievable. So let me take you, this is pretty much it for the front garden. You might be able to see there is a hanging basket there, and then there is another one there. Ooh, there. And they're just geraniums, I think, at this point, and some trailing lobelia. Here you might be able to, it depends, I'll see you on editing, some of the houseplants that are in the kitchen window. And they're all doing quite nicely. You'll see these up close from the inside when I show you the inside. Now we're at the back garden. You might notice that both this and the allotment sound is a bit slow because I don't want to be shouting in terms of anybody else that might be around. First little plant that I'll bring you down so you can kind of see. That is the Adansonia variegata reverted that I was gonna get rid of, but I'm just like, you know what? You can have your last hooray out in the garden. I mean, it's doing great. It's in the shadiest bit of the garden, absolutely fine. Right next to me, on this side, you can see some raised beds that I bought. These are really cool from Amazon, actually. Some lobelia, some purple salvia. This is like the purple bed. There's some kind of magenta-y, kind of pinky, purpley, cosmos, I think those are. I always get them confused because I planted cosmos and, I can never remember what the other ones were now. Cosmos and something else. And then asters. Cosmos and asters, and I can always remember which one's which, but it's either a cosmo or an aster. You will see the cosmos and the asters in a minute as well. This is what happens when these beds stay a bit too moist for a bit too long. Can you see that there? That'd be mushrooms. So I've been kind of letting these dry out a bit more. But yeah, they're doing all right. Some more hanging baskets. These are really cool, by the way. So these fuchsias here are perennial or hardy fuchsias. So these stayed in over the winter, they came back this year and they're blooming again. Interestingly, this lobelia, which is meant to be hardy, was still in there, and I was going to plant some new lobelia in, but it came back from last year. So anybody else who's been growing in the UK and in gardens, has your lobelia ever come back? Which is really shocking. Some more of the hanging baskets. You'll see the outside of the conservatory now as well. And down here is some of many alstromerias. So very, very cool little colours. These are all kind of coming to the end of the season now, but the orange one I love so much. And then you may have noticed on the barbecue, I have got the Adenium arabicum. And this is the Adenium obesum that I've been trying to get to come back in leaf all summer long. And I'm just not doing well with that one. So, and the spiral cactus there as well. Now, bits here, and again, let me kind of show you, if I tilt you up, that is the outside of the conservatory. And you've seen what I've done there is I found this really cool thing on Amazon, actually. If you don't want to be putting something like a net curtain, they've got sheets, like it's kind of like contact plastic, and it's to make your window, and this is obviously for anybody who doesn't mind those windows, even if it's just for a season, having a frosted effect. And I found that that frosted effect is enough of a diffusion of light that even if you're getting direct light in that space, that diffusion almost works a bit like it's a net curtain. So top tip for you there, if you don't like the curtains, that could be a decent option. You can put it on better than I did because I don't care. This is a gift that I was given, which was a black rose. Some miniature rose bushes here, which is interesting because these are always sold in the houseplant department, but actually no rose is going to be happy ever indoors. And I just planted it out and it's in full bud at the moment. I didn't realize until I came down so low, but it's all going to come through. These are really interesting. I don't know if I've got any pictures, but I'll see if I can find them and add them here. They look a bit like custard and raspberry, or raspberry ripple basically. So it's yellow and pinky, magenta-y colours in one kind of bloom. Is really, really cool. Some bay. And then right behind here, and this is a nice continuation from when I was doing the repots, these beasts here are all, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 plants, and there's a 5th one down below. These are all the pepino melons, and if I bring you in a really close, hopefully that's going to come up, if not I'm going to have to put a picture on there, you might be able to see right here is the first little pepino melon, and then there's another one down there as well, which is a very, very cool. I'm hoping these are going to mature in time because I've got a few more blooms on there. I might have to bring these in for a bit just so they can mature. And then behind there, so here is, you know, the fruit trees that I have. This is the first year that I'm getting any apples and it's laden. This is the pear, which was covered in blooms, and I sat there hand pollinating every single one of them. Did a single pear happen? No, but it's the first time it's had blooms, so hopefully maybe next year. I know the pears generally don't tend to be self-fertile by and large. That one's a semi-self-fertile one, so hopefully I might get some fruit next year. This is my kind of cherry blossom. It's kind of like a weeping effect. Right here is some oregano because I need to represent my Greek roots, because anybody who's Greek, look, it's oregano in the UK. Some stunning, I found these, I wasn't planning on buying. You know when you're just like, you're bad enough when you're in a plant store for house plants, you're even worse when you're in a garden centre for garden plants. These are some very, very cool looking, I'm going to mispronounce this, and everybody always gets me wrong, dahlias or dahlias, I don't know, can't remember which way it's the right way, but very, very cool because it's got like a pink tip to the blooms, and then when they kind of are starting to die back, they all go fully white. It's very, very cool. And then right next to it is even more of the physalis. It's a good thing that I didn't plant the wrong thing and I've got a bomb ton of fruit coming. Because there's another 2 plants there. And then behind me here, I have more. There's another apple here. And then down below there, which really, I know this one's not in bloom, but that is some thyme. This is a cool thing that I found on TikTok this year, and I thought I'd try it. This is a buddleia, but this is called wisteria lane, so it kind of stays small and compact, and then it starts drooping down with these cascades of pink, purple flowers. It looks like a mini wisteria, which is really, really cool. And then, let me bring you up close so you can see. I don't think you're going to be able to see any of the fruits in this one. Oh, maybe. I'm waiting for them to go a bit more on the coloured side. But there, you might be able to see some of them in there. These are nectarines, and that's a nectarine, and there's hazelnut behind it. Apologies for the noise. Apparently the pigeons decided this is the time to get frisky. Some more alstromerias there. Oh, and this. It's very cool because it's in fruit at the moment, but I'm still waiting for them to mature. These little things here, covered. Can you see how absolutely covered this is? Absolutely laden. That is the Chilean guava. Chilean, Peruvian, I can never remember which one it is, but can you see what I mean now when I was kind of explaining this on a previous video, is these kind of start off a bit red, and hopefully that's coming through. And it's only when they start going white that you know that they're ready. So these don't feel ripe by any stretch of the imagination yet, but these are going to be really, really cool. Now, let me show you. So one of these things that's really, really cool, which again for my Greeks, this is a form of velita, or for the people that are not Greek, this is closely related. I don't think it directly is, but this is closely related to amaranth and quinoa. And actually for the Greeks, anybody who's, because I know quinoa has, I think quinoa is how they say it in Greece, but quinoa is how we say it here, has recently started coming to Greece as well. Something you might have not known, quinoa is related to velita. You're welcome. I didn't know this either. Whole bunch of tomatoes, and these are the bush variety because I know these are the ones that I always get. These are the red alerts, and they're absolutely heaving. I've just cleared a whole bunch of red ones and did about 3 to 4 litres of tomato sauce, and I usually freeze that for the winter, which is really, really nice because it means that I've got homemade pasta sauce all through the winter, which is from my own tomatoes, which is really, really cool. And then there's some more courgettes down below here, which again I need to pick because they are far too big. Or zucchinis for the Americans, right there, the yellow ones. There's some strawberries right there, which have all been done now. These are those were the alpine strawberries. And boy, oh boy, I didn't get too many fruits this year. I'm hoping to get a few more next year. If you can get white strawberries, the alpine strawberries specifically, buy them. Because when they said that it tastes a bit like pineapple, I did not believe them. The closest thing, I don't know if I'd necessarily say pineapple, but it's got that ever so slight tang and sourness, which is delicious, by the way. Still very sweet. But to me, it almost felt fizzy. And I can see the pineapple thing. So, you know, sometimes when you've got that kind of slightly, I don't want to say burny sensation on your mouth, but you know that kind of tartness that you get sometimes from pineapple. That's what you get from those, and those are awesome. So they are running like mad at the moment, so I'm going to have loads next year. More at the back, you should be able to see there on that fence. There's more of that cathedral bell. This one hasn't started blooming yet, but that's 2 plants, by the way. And that took no time at all. This thing grows like a weed. I think it needs more light to get a bit more blooms, but that's fine. I just needed some bit of green on my hedge. There's another acer there as well as an acer there. These are the roses that I was trying to find for years, and it's like a triple rose and it's fragrant, and I finally found the name of it this year, which is really cool because this wasn't planted by me. I have got some of the, because I mentioned this, and I don't know in what order, if you're going to see the house first or the allotment first, but these are some everbear strawberries. So these are strawberries that go throughout the whole season rather than being a specific time. There is some figs like that, and I've already harvested some figs. That is a Schefflera, I think it's the fingers variety, if I'm not mistaken. This, because I know this ended up becoming a bit of a crowd favorite when I mentioned that I got it. This is, believe it or not, my miniature false orange. This will go in the ground when I move to the more permanent house. But yeah, anybody who's grown this, do you know if do I need to trim this back this year, or do I just let it go crazy? Because it's going crazy, but I don't know if I'm supposed to be doing that. And then I've got my little bit of a green wall this year. So that is just geraniums, because I'm definitely Mediterranean in that respect. Some more strawberries. That, barring the greenhouse, if you can see this beast of a plant here, which is very pretty actually. It almost looks like it could be dock leaves, like massive dock leaves. This whole bucket is horseradish, which I'm really looking forward to growing this year. Right, let me bring you into the first greenhouse. So a whole bunch of basil that has bolted, which I need to deal with. Colocasia Pharaoh's mask is somewhere here, if I can kind of like move that all the way around. So that one's doing okay. I've got the Alocasia Gaggiana variegata back there, which you might be able to see. There's some caladiums in here. Ooh. Some caladiums in here. And if I kind of pan you around, you'll be able to see the variegata. There's one reverted stem, but that's fine. There is another caladium there. And then I've got a watermelon growing in that little net there, because it's a baby watermelon. There's more cucumbers, because I obviously don't have enough. More tomatoes, some snacking peppers, and some chili peppers. Sorry, I had to tilt you around because there was no point of us all being in there at the same time. This is a very cool plant. It's like a flamingo. It's a Salix flamingo. It was doing okay, but then it kind of struggled a bit. There's some more. That's the other polytunnel or greenhouse. There's some more alstroemeria down there. And then this one I'm really, really excited about for kind of next beginning of spring. This is Forsythia or Forsythia. And if you've never seen this out and about, this has got the most intense yellow flowers when everything else is just beginning to wake up, and then it gets its leaves. So the whole thing is going to be yellow next year. So that's going to be really, really cool. I have got some tiny blueberries down here. This is a Daphne. The Daphne fragrance, and it's a shame that the blooms have all gone now. There's some weeding that needs to happen on here. This grows very slowly. But the blooms on this, so this one is the Eternal Fragrance. Oh, these smelled amazing when they were there. So that's one. These are the, let me pan you up. So these are the Cosmos or the Asas, I can never remember, but that was a mix. So there's the white ones there, and then there's the, these white ones? Yeah, these are the white ones, and these are the pinky ones. This looks very much like my favorite type of chrysanthemums, the kind of shamrock type of chrysanthemums. So I am digging those like you could not believe. And what else is of interest in here? Some more figs. This got repotted at the beginning of the season, so it dropped all of the figs that would have been edible for this year. There's going to be quite a few figs that are not going to be edible, but apparently, if I've got any kind of viewers from Turkey, and I know this is something that apparently they do a lot in Turkey. I don't think we do this in Greece, but you can harvest these underripe figs and make them into like a preserved fig something. So I might give that a try this year. Some more of the Aster Cosmos, I can never remember which one it is now. More and more down there. My bananas are absolutely stinking huge this year. This is a Musa Baju. And then right in the corner, and I think actually there's some dregs of flowers still left on it. Yeah, you can see some of the white blooms there. Is that still that one? Because this here is traditional jasmine. In between it, so these leaves, the slightly more kind of leathery leaves, that is Jasminoides, Traculospermium jasminoides, or star jasmine. Very, very cool. Let me smell. No, this is star jasmine. Highly recommend that. Grows super slow, but highly recommend that. The smell and the longevity of that one is insane. If you want blooms that smell nice for a long period of time, get your hands on some of those. They are fantastic. And then, I did mention it on a previous video somewhere. Let me see if I can pan you down. Right here is my, orchid. Oh, I am entirely blocking now. It's fine, I'll put it on the name. But this is an orchid that is summering outdoors, because apparently that might be the one thing that makes it bloom happily in the winter. Basically, it needs that kind of summer outside. I've got a gunnera there on the corner there, and it's looking a bit peaky. It's never the good time of the year to see it at the moment. That is wasabi, which is nearly 3 years old now. and it gets too much light at this particular moment in time. I do need to water it quite a bit because it's meant to be growing near flowing waters. The other thing is, oh, and it always looks so good at this time of the year, 4th year that specific begonia has come back outdoors. Stunning. Don't know what variety it is, but, and then a Tetrapanax Rex here, which is kind of cool. This is another one that's going to go in the ground at some point when I move. And then let me show you a few more. So right behind me here is a citrus trifoliata, I think. And this is like a bitter orange, but this is fully hardy in the UK. So anybody who gets citrus plants and they say that it's slightly hardier than a regular citrus plant in the UK, they tend to be grafted on a rootstock. This is the rootstock. This grows quite extreme looking thorns, and I haven't got it to bloom this year, but I'm hoping next year. And the main reason why you get this is the blooms smell absolutely amazing. And apparently you can get it blooming at the beginning of the season, so the beginning of spring, and sometimes it will do a second flush that will happen in the autumn time as well. So that's really, really cool. There is, I don't want to disturb the bumblebees too much, some really interesting dahlias again there. Behind is another bed. So you remember the purple one that I was showing you before with all the purple flowers? That one was meant to be the red one, but there's no red. I couldn't find any red lobelias, so it's white and red for this one. And I think it's Rudbeckia, if I'm not mistaken, at the top there, which has come back from last year. So I need to move that into the ground, possibly in the allotment. And then let me show you the piece de resistance, because I am so excited about this. Barring the fact that there's another Darjeeling Musa banana tree right at the back there. But what I've got behind me right here in the kind of partial shade, it does get kind of blasted with light. This is a Feijoa. So I've got a baby one here in order to help with cross-pollination, but then the big one, let me show you if I can. One thing that I'm super excited about. Can you see? There's one there, there's another one there, some more somewhere, there's another one there. I'm gonna have Feijoa fruit this year. Yes, yes, yes. So very, very excited about that. And then the last few kind of fruit trees are, again, this is probably going to mean more to the Greeks. This here is the mastic. It's a baby one, obviously, because these are usually the size of established olive trees in Greece. This is a mastic. This is a pomegranate, some Italian, I think it's called Italian, so the flat leaf parsley. Back here is a plum, which gave me its first few plums this year, and the peach that gave me 5 or 6 peaches this year. Considering that last year it only gave me 2, I'm gonna take it as a win, and they're baby ones anyway. And the cherry tree that I never get around, it doesn't matter how much I cover the cherries, it always get eaten one way or another. So I think that is everything from the gardens. Okay, so we're at the allotment now, and you should be able to see some of it behind me as I kind of walk into the allotment. Apologies for the sunglasses, but it's a very, very sunny day, which is a bit of a rarity in the UK, so I need to not be blind. So I'm walking you down actually where I would normally walk to get to my plot. So you'll see the plot in a bit. You can see some of the other people's plots behind me, which is kind of cool. It's quite early on a Sunday, so I thought it'd be nice and quiet today. Although I did see 1 or 2 individuals coming through. Duck for the apple tree. But yeah, allotment's been doing really well this summer actually, so I thought I'd show you. Fair warning, it's not tidy. It's not even fully weeded, but you'll see what I mean in just a second. So coming into the allotment, you should be able to see that behind me there. There's a little arch that's been placed this year, which is kind of cool. And if I kind of tilt you down, you should be able to see there. And then, yeah, let me bring you in. Ooh, actually first, don't know if it's going to come up. Yes, it can. That is a, I can't remember what it's called, Kobae, I think, but it's called Cathedral Bells. So this is when it first kind of emerges as this kind of pinkish color, and I'll show you what it looks like when it starts to harden off. You can see there, that's the kind of, it starts going purple, and I've just lost a bloom this morning. Is it down here somewhere? No, it isn't, because that'd be too easy. But yeah, it's just very, very pretty basically. But you can see, just in case anybody was wondering, that plant there is definitely sun-stressed. You can kind of see the redness, especially on the top leaves there. That's really, really sun-stressed. Now, you might be able to see behind me, if I tilt you down, right there, this is all Jerusalem artichokes, which is really, really cool. And I know there's a lot of people that talk about Jerusalem artichokes and just like, if you put them in once, you'll never get them out. I'm just like, yes, that's what I wanted. So those were planted 3-4 years ago. They've come back every year, which is fantastic. Now behind was meant to be, so if I show you down below, that was meant to be a flower bed. It's not done great. And then right at the back there, you should be able to see a spent artichoke, like an actual globe artichoke. So that's really cool. Actually, for the eagle-eyed, let me see if I can actually move you so you can kind of see underneath there is so underneath behind me, you should be able to see, if I kind of move, can you see that? That is the 4 jerry cans of water, 25 litres each. So that's about 100 litres that I have to carry into the allotment from where I kind of walked before to here twice a day at this time of the year. So once in the morning and once in the evening. So yes. This is what happens when you have no running water at the allotment. Now behind me, and let me go a bit lower so you can kind of see, is, whilst I try to avoid all the bugs, hopefully it's not too much in the shade, right here is the ground cherries. So this is part of the Physalis family, and it's done really, really well, and I'll show you one of those up close so you can kind of see what it looks like in case you've never seen a Physalis. And then down below, you should be able to see, I do need to pick them, they've got a bit too big. That is 3 yellow courgettes that are there. What's courgettes for the Americans? Zucchinis. So it's yellow zucchinis. I'll show you the girls in just a second basically, but a lot of stuff has already been picked this year, but I'll kind of talk you through what you can see. Now behind me is a fruit cage. So right here is a fruit cage, and that has got black currants, I think that's what it is, or blackberries, I always get them mixed up. It's the stuff that, for the Brits, it's the stuff that Ribena is made out of. If you've never had like fresh homemade Ribena, try it, try it, thank me later. There's some tayberries, there's some blackberries down there as well, and there was some strawberries. The strawberries are all done basically at this time of the year. Let's have a look. If I kind of take you around, and you can see more of the fruit cage. I'll bring you here, down there. So that would have been where all the strawberries usually come through, but obviously this time of the year it's kind of done. However, I have bought, and I think I've mentioned, Everbear strawberries, and I'll show you those in the garden basically later on. I think probably going to be on the same video as this. So anything else I need to show you here? So if I tilt you down, you should be able to see you're right here. This is a kiwi acai, and I'll put it at the top there. This is really, really cool little kiwi. It kind of grows a bit like grapes, and they barely, if at all, I think, have none of the fuzziness, so you can kind of eat them all whole. I have still not even managed to get blooms on this, let alone managed to get its fruit, and this has been here for 3 or 4 years. It's not the best conditions for it. When the final house move happens and I've got better conditions and I can control it and I can kind of water it to the level that it probably needs, it will probably be happier at that point. I wasn't planning on digging this up and moving it, but I might dig it up and move it just because it will be better, basically. Now, if I bring you to the back alley of my plot, you should see right here, I'll show you all the nitty-gritty bits. So right behind me here is 1 water butt, 2 water butts, and a big IBC, which I think is is it 100 gallons? I can't remember. Is it 100 gallons? No, that is 300 gallons. 300 gallons, I'm losing over 1,000 litres of water in there. Just to be clear, all of these water butts had been empty because it was full after the winter. All of these were empty by beginning to middle of May. Such unimaginable joy. And then there's 2 compost bins right behind there and there. Those are usually kind of heaving by this time of the year, but you can kind of see the polytunnel behind, which a lot of stuff has been grown already, and you can see the horrendous plastic shed that I built, but it was nice and simple to build. I say it's easier than a wooden shed, basically. I also cannot be dealing with that level of kind of histrionics. Right, if I bring you right down here, I should, if I tilt you down, be able to show you right here, that is a gooseberry. And this is the first year that the birds didn't take all of it off. Even though last year we covered it, they still managed to get most of it off. I managed to get a decent crop of gooseberries this year. So you can kind of see it there a bit better. Now if I bring you back up again, and you can see the physalis here. Let me see if I can bring you in so you can kind of see what I mean by the fruits. Hopefully, I don't know if that's coming up. Yes, you should be able to see the little lanterns that are happening there. Very, very, very cool. That is laden. Annoyingly, it's the Physalis peruviana, and I thought it was proper ground cherry, but apparently the species, I think it's a species, yeah, that I was going after, it wasn't the one that I planted, and the one that I'm trying to find here is quite popular to get in seed in kind of Europe and America, but you can't really get it too much in the UK. I've scoured the internet now. I have found one company that sells the truer kind of ground cherries rather than, that is just a Physalis now, the way that we would get it in the supermarket, which is okay. There's 3 plants there and 2 at the house. Not what I was hoping for. I was hoping for ground cherries, but you know, needs must, do what you do. And then you can kind of see here, and I'll bring you down, and it's between the weeds. So hopefully it will start making a bit more sense when you see it. So these little leaves here, there's quite a few of them there in amongst the weeds, but I'm not worried because that's a plant that doesn't have that many issues with weeds. That is parsnip. Parsnip? Yes, parsnip. But that's going to be ready for kind of winter, so hopefully there'll be a bit of a harvest for the Christmas time, so that should be quite nice. And then next to it, you should be able to see a bit of a polytunnel. It's grown up through weeds. I don't know, this is the first year that I've failed miserably to grow beetroots, and every year before that I have had great success with beetroots, which is highly, highly frustrating. There is the Manzelwurzel, which is still surviving somewhere down at the bottom there, which is, for those that remember when I was doing a repot and I was planting that out, that is the beetroot that gets absolutely ginormous. So fingers crossed I might get something from that one. And then I'll show you behind, because this is the girls. I'll show you the girls properly in just a moment. But I thought this year, let's do something a bit different. So I planted some salvias, which I thought were quite cool because I got these dual coloured salvias, which is very, very cool. Apologies for like the shade and the light during this video, but I'm working with what I got and I've done it early so I don't bake. These are African marigolds. And it's interesting because a lot of people that are not used to kind of outdoor gardening too much are just like, what are they? They're really, really pretty. These are just marigolds, but they're just African marigolds. Right next to it is another planter that I've got with more salvia right at the back, which you might be able to see peeking up, and just a burst of like yellow colour, and as much as I can help the pollinators at the moment. And then further up, and I can never remember what these plants are, but they're very cool because they're kind of like a purpley bluey colour, and I thought they'd work quite nicely with the marigolds, and they have done a really nice kind of contrast. So I've tried to make the chicken run a bit prettier. I've put some bunting on. It still looks a bit busted, but this is my thing, so. And then obviously some flowers on the side. Interestingly, we got rid of, because we struggled to grow it so much, this is the last remaining bit, and I don't know whether you'll be able to see it. There you go. So that is the top of an asparagus. And we thought we'd dug it all out, but apparently some of it survived. Is there anything else that I need to show you? Let me just pan you around. And if I bring you here, I'll bring you in a bit lower. This is where all the potatoes were. So they've only just now died back. These are the main crop potatoes. So this is what most of us would recognize in the supermarket as potatoes. And you need to let the plant, for those who don't know, they need to let the plant kind of die back. And that's the point where you take the potatoes out. So that's on my to-do list. When, I don't know, but it's going to happen. And then right behind, you might have been able to notice, which was a really cool thing that I found, that is a metal raised bed, and it comes with its own little kind of polytunnel cover, which at the moment I'm growing winter crops in there. That only just went in recently, so I've got seeds in there that have sprouted, and I'll show you. That is kale and rocket, or arugula for the Americans. And that's doing really, really well. Obviously the benefit of that, because it's just a frame, if and when it gets big enough that I'm going to need to take that off before it gets too cold. I'm hoping I might never have to take that off and it's going to get too cold for the white cabbage butterflies, because otherwise they're going to decimate the kale. I could always put butterfly netting over that for a bit and then put it back on when it gets too cold. But let me show you. Right, if I pan you down so you can kind of see, there you go, bit of chaos planting. There was meant to be some full in order, and I just gave up at some point and just chucked the seeds in. So this is going to be, if I pan you down a bit more, that is going to be kale right here. And some of the smaller little seedlings that you're seeing coming through, that is all going to be arugula or rocket for the Brits, basically. So this should be nice to keep me going over the winter. So let me just close that up, and then I'll show you around the last few bits, possibly the other polytunnel, and then I'll show you the girls. And for the people that are relatively new to the channel and don't know what I mean by girls, I mean the chickens. Because I've got 5 chickens that I'll show you in just a second. So bringing you in, actually let me show you something else. And hopefully if I move a bit further up, you should be able to see it. If I pan you down, yeah, you can see a water butt there, and there should be another one on the other side that you should see. Interestingly enough, those 2 water butts do so much better for me in terms of what happens throughout the year in terms of water than the bigger water butts, which is always a good plan. More little flowers here, just because I want to inject a tiny bit of life into other bits of the plot. So some more salvia, some purple salvia, some more of that African marigold. The reason why I've got African marigolds, by the way, is African marigolds are a bit more drought tolerant, and because I obviously want to conserve water as much as possible, because I don't want to be bringing water that often here, I thought I'd kind of do that. But actually the proper marigolds have done fine this year as well, so I'm not particularly fussed with it. You can kind of see the coop for the girls and the little nest box that I've added recently. Are they using the nest box? are they? So no, is the answer to that. Now, a few other interesting plants that you might want to try in your garden that do really, really well in the UK. Obviously, everybody might know the, oh, why am I forgetting what this is? Rhubarb. I'm forgetting what that is because anybody who's Greek and watches me, they don't even know what that is. We don't really have rhubarb. Probably the climate doesn't suit it, so we've got no cultural context for rhubarb. So it's not one of those things. Interestingly enough, I'm not a particularly huge fan of this, but other people that I know do enjoy it. Now in here, for the eagle-eyed, you might have been able to notice, can you see here? That is oxalis, and it looks a bit like, I think it's oxalis iron cross. It's got the little oxalis flowers. This is a bed that was always filled with weeds, which, to be fair, it's still filled with weeds. But what I've done is I've put the bulbs in, and it's grown like mad this year. This was part of like the summer bulbs that I got. And it's covering this. There's a penstemon in here, which is obviously good for the pollinators. And then through the weeds, hopefully you'll be able to see this. Right here behind me, you might just be looking at this going, oh, it's just honeysuckle. That is something called honeyberry, which is, I think, Japanese honeysuckle, and it's meant for cooler climates, and it's also the only honeysuckle, I think, that you can eat. So it's really interesting. Have a look at that if you've never seen it online. The actual berries are rectangular, right? Really, really cool. And they look a bit the same color as kind of blueberries, basically. So it's very, very cool. And then some more hanging baskets here behind me that I've put just to pretty things up, and the back of the IBC. Right, let me take you into the polytunnel before it gets too hot and the camera overheats. Oh, this is going to be an exceptionally fast visit because it's so humid in here. But you can see some of it's dying back now, but if I pan you up so you can kind of see quite how much it's growing across the top of the polytunnel, this is all cucumbers because I make a whole bunch of dill pickles for the summer. There's obviously still some weeds and stuff that's gone overgrown in here as well, but loads of chili peppers that you can kind of see if I bring you down here. That's a chili pepper there. Nothing massively spicy. There's some marigolds in there to help with the pollinators. You can see some cucumbers that have probably been left for a bit too long, if I'm being honest. And that's it. And then I've got, through the weeds, if I show you, these kind of hanging baskets. They're like sacks with slits in them. Strawberries, so early for strawberries that I get with this. If I get it in February or March, the strawberries in here because it's so warm and it's so, so happy. Ignore the middle trough planters. I need to dig them up and kind of put some wintry stuff in as well here. And there's some curly kale here as well. As I said, this is a horrendous mess in here, but it just needs to be functional. It doesn't need to look pretty in here. Okay, now that I'm out, just because otherwise the camera will massively overheat, let me show you the girls. Righty-ho, so we're now in the run. Let me show you, apologies for the mess, but chickens are messy. Can't do much about that. So that is a bit of a raised bed that I put some smaller chicken wire, I don't know what it's called, I think it's like mesh cloth or whatever, that they can stand on, and then there's grass that they can kind of peck through but without decimating it, which has been really, really, really good. And then you've got their water, the frisbees, I'll explain in just a second. That is Tallulah. Hi Tallulah. Let's see. That is Tallulah. She's one of the Brahmas. She's a partridge, I think, gold partridge Brahma. Is very inquisitive. How you doing, girlie? And then behind her is Jolene. The white chicken that you can see in the distance there is Blanche, as in Blanche Devereaux, although she's also known as Scrat because, much like Ice Age, she freaks out and runs around. And then right next to her are the two silkies, one which is grey, which is Gracie Lou, as in Gracie Lou Freebush, and the brown one is Delilah. So they've all got their own little personalities, and they've got like kind of roosting bars, and you can see the automatic door for the coop as well, which is good. Now the frisbees is because I want to be able to give them treats, which for them is dried calci worms or black soldier fly worms, but I don't want them staying on the floor of the run, so they get fed in those little frisbees. There's 3 of them because 2 of them, they all start fighting. 3 is enough to spread it out enough, and when they're done they just get put up again, and you should be able to see them doing what they want to do now. Whether or not they're going to get any of the grass now, I don't know. But those are the big girls, absolutely huge breed, and then you've got the small breeds at the back, and you can tell the 3 smaller ones were originally got together, so they're very kind of attached to each other, and these 2 came later and they're very attached to each other. They all kind of coexist happily enough. But there's very much a pecking order, and Tallulah I think is top hen, Jolene is second, and yeah, the other 3 small girls are lower down on the pecking order basically. But yeah, they're very inquisitive animals, great fun, would not change them for the world. And I think that is everything, so I shall wrap up this section and move you on to whatever section comes next when I film it. So what did you think of all of the house plants in the house? They're doing quite well, most of them. There's some new kind of plants in places where there was other plants before. Some plants have got sunsetted, and you might know what that means generally, but there are some new additions around the house, and a lot of the stuff seems to be doing quite well. This is a great time of the year. Obviously, we're at the tail end of the summer. They've had their full growing season to grow, but I am ready for the rest that is to come, which is autumn and winter, because watering everything at the moment is a bit of a challenge, as you can imagine. Not just the house plants, the garden plants, the allotment plants, but also the conservatory, which goes from needing watering once maybe every 7 to 10 to 14 days, possibly some things even 3 weeks watering, to this time of the year, this space alone goes down to once every 2 to 3 days if I am lucky with some plants. So as well as having to do the garden and the allotment. It's a lot. But hopefully you've enjoyed. Tell me if some of the stuff surprised you. If you've got any questions about any of the plants that I showed you, do let me know. I also added cameos from Duke the dog in the houseplanty section, and also the chickens on the allotment section, because I know a lot of you always ask to see a bit more of the kind of pets, so to speak. But yes, hopefully you've enjoyed. Let me know if you want me to do another one of these. I probably will do in autumn time. It probably won't be the garden and the allotment at that point, because both of those things will be put to bed around that time, so there's not going to be an awful lot to show you. It will probably just be a houseplant tour and a second video, which will be the conservatory tour. But yes, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon, and I truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.